Welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. Today's video is going to be absolutely bonkers. Now, the data is in and the perfect storm for a foreclosure catastrophe is brewing. And one of those things that's forming, you guys, is the lack of consumer awareness on what's going on in the foreclosure department. And so obviously I have our community expert, Melody Wright, here to break down what's going on under the hood with foreclosures. Melody, first, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Travis. How are you doing?
I'm good. Just slamming those energy drinks, trying to keep up. But real quick, guys, if you don't already know who Melody Wright is, she's a genius. She's a friend. She's a fighter for the people. She was just on Fox News as well. But if you guys like what you hear today, you like her breakdowns, don't forget, go to her Substack, Melody Wright. Definitely subscribe to that. Maybe the paid version, maybe not, whatever you can budget. But great writings here. And don't forget also, you guys, she does have a YouTube channel, Melody Wright, as well. And Melody, I'm going to go in right away and I'm going to talk about the various data providers and how that data is all over the place. But before I dig into what's going on under the hood, is there anything you want to start with saying?
Well, Travis, no, I just think this is the time when things are starting to get really, or I should say it's important that we start paying attention, because I think we've reached a critical inflection point, and all this work that you and I have been doing is about to pay off because we have an understanding of all of these different metrics, their limitations. We understand how to look at them. And so I just feel, I don't feel good about the path we're on, but I feel very solid in terms of the information that you and I have been gathering over the last several years, and what that's going to do to help us help other people as we go through what's ahead.
Well said. That was actually my next line, and you took it from me. I feel like you can see through my computer. I'm just joking, Melody. I mean, well said. And where I want to start is by, again, just reiterating to the viewers that there are basically 3 different providers of delinquency data, and all 3 of those providers have different data. I want to start with ATTOM. Now, ATTOM came out, I think, about a week ago, August 14th. You guys can see that right here, stating that U.S. foreclosure activity sees a monthly increase in July of 2024. And really all I'm going to read is that, it was a pretty drastic increase. We had an 18% increase as far as foreclosure starts, and a 14% increase as far as foreclosures completed. So there, all of these data providers are acknowledging that foreclosure activity, that trajectory is going up. But again, my issue is when we look at, one of the leading providers, which is Black Knight has its own story they're telling. In fact, they're only saying, and by the way, they're only going to June. So massively lagging data, but they're saying that there was 22,000 starts. So again, they're saying 22,000 starts. ATTOM is saying 32,000 starts. A lot of misleading data. Black Knight is saying that delinquency rate is 3.49%. But when we go to HUD and we look at the survey, HUD is saying 5.17%. That is a much different picture. 3.5 to 5.17 is much different. Also, what's interesting, Melody, and I don't know how they're breaking this down, but they're saying mortgage delinquency rate, prime versus subprime. I didn't know we're in the early 2000s again. I didn't know people were using the word subprime, but okay, guys, but they're saying a delinquency rate of 17%. Oh my gosh, 17%. But also what's interesting, I find that's very, very interesting, is the amount of people underwater. So borrowers underwater, they're saying about 1 million people underwater. So, instead of going into all of this, here's the data I want to look at. Okay, this is data that you put together, Melody. This is just the top, I believe, 15 metro areas that you're tracking and the corresponding delinquency rate. Can you take us through this real quick?
Absolutely. So this comes from the Black Knight, the data, back-end data, and these are the delinquency rates for our July. And as we can see, Travis, who's on top there, which in my opinion puts you ahead of me in our Florida versus Texas debate. One thing I'm working on right now is an analysis on, for every uptick in delinquency, what is that impact to home prices? And so working on that to hopefully share with folks soon. The other thing before we jump to this, Travis, I wanted to kind of tell you that I thought was interesting I had dug into the back end of Black Knight database and realized I was really looking at, okay, what is the formal definition of subprime? And it's essentially like, I think 670 and below. But in reality, the way, and you're going to love this, the way they bucket the data is, I think it's like 680 or so, I can't remember exactly, but there's a 10 point of the credit score that really should be out of that. So you could look at, and this is in Black Knight, so you could look at Black Knight subprime only and what that percentage delinquency is. But they've basically created the categories so that you cannot see like the lower 10 points of what's categorized as subprime. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. It's called an LLPA tier. And the way that pricing works in the origination end is it goes in tiers of 20. So you have your 680, it goes to 680, 700, 720. So the fact that they're doing it by tens, again, allows them to control the narrative. So yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Okay. So anyway, but back to the schedule, this is something that I would say if we had a scoreboard, and Travis, you and I probably need to get one for Texas versus Florida. Texas would be winning at these very large delinquency statistics, in my opinion. 6%. No one would want their book to be 6% delinquent. The average, and I have July's numbers. You had up June, but the average delinquency for MSAs was 3.68%. And so Texas is far above the average. And I just had somebody say to me, well, is a percentage point all that meaningful? When it comes to default, it absolutely is meaningful. You don't see large percentage swings like this unless there's trouble brewing.
And Melody, can I confirm, you did say this is from Black Knight, which means that this is the most probably the most optimistic, rosy colored data that you can get, meaning that Black Knight probably doesn't even cover half. They don't even cover some of the most distressed servicers.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Meaning that this information, I mean, we could safely assume it is much worse on the ground than what's reported here. Is that right?
Absolutely. I mean, without a doubt. And I think by looking at those other data sources, we know this, and we, like you stated, we know Black Knight only has about a third of all the loans that are out there.
And I'll read this just quickly for the viewers, and I want to get your opinion on why you think Houston's number one. But Houston's number one, and then a couple, Woodland, Sugarland. Number two, San Antonio. So number 1 and 2, Texas, and then Atlanta. 4 is Bakersfield, and then Cleveland, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Atlanta. Surprised to see Richmond on there. Indianapolis, Rochester, Chicago. I'm not surprised. Cincinnati and Detroit. Do you have any idea, Melody, of why Houston may be leading the way?
It's probably property taxes and insurance, Travis. That would be my best guess. I mean, those property taxes in Texas just crucified borrowers. I'm seeing it in all the books. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, there's a huge problem going on in Texas with property taxes, and that's just not just the tax rate, the assessment value on the CAD level. The amount of fraud that we've uncovered in Texas is absolutely shocking. But now I want to go a little bit further under the hood, and I want to show the viewers, Melody, the data for mortgages that were originated in the last 6 months, and I want to explain to the viewers and show the viewers the birth of loan modification, because essentially there's a lot of people saying we're fine because the delinquencies are okay. But what I'm trying to tell people is if you're looking at the delinquency rate on mortgages, that's not a recessionary indicator. If that's what you're looking at to see if there's recession coming, understand that you don't get that data until during and well after the recession. A couple points I want to make here, Melody. First of all, again, this is the delinquency rate of all mortgages, conventional, FHA, and VA. This is 6 months after origination. So this is new homeowners, right? 6 months, new homeowner. And right now, first of all, let's go to the left. All right. And I want people to understand that the delinquency rate started to, this is crazy. Okay. The delinquency rate for newly originated loans started to plummet when the recession started. And that's why I highlighted this here. You can see the FHA delinquency plummeting, conventional, VA, everything plummeting, because this was the birth of loan modification. And so the reason I'm pointing this out is they're supposed to be low. After the loan modification, it becomes clear that we don't need massive delinquencies and defaults for a potential crisis to form. Because again, you see the delinquency rate plummeting, and it stayed low after recession. But again, I thought it was interesting, Melody, because you could clearly see, the delinquency dropping, the birth of loan modification. And also this was the birth of consumer awareness.
And it was also the birth of when we broke contract law in this country, Travis, doing those loan modifications, because essentially you weren't supposed to be able to modify those notes. So a lot of things happened then that changed the housing industry, in my opinion.
Yeah. And then even in 2012, but Melody, can you tell the viewers, what does that data that I showed you, what is that data, the birth of loan modification, right? And then the suppressed delinquencies after, what can that tell us about the narrative of today?
Well, what can it tell us? I mean, firstly, we need to be paying attention. I think probably what you're pointing to is that these levels are not going to tell you what's really going on under the hood. And I should mention that we have had GFC style intervention already from a loss mitigation perspective. Those 18-month forbearances, the payment deferrals where you put everything that you did not pay at the back of the loan to be paid off when you sell it or pay off the loan, the partial claims for FHA, and that's very similar to the payment deferral, the partial claim plus the modification that you can do for FHA, the 40-year modification. So all of that has been happening since 2020, guys. And so in many ways, we had a GFC style loan mod event already, which is suppressing all that delinquency. But what I can tell you specifically is that I still oversee client books, and I do something not a lot of people do, is I do loan level review, because what I learned when managing default back during the GFC is that you cannot look at delinquency and default from an aggregate perspective. You want it to move. Foreclosure is a legal process that's different in every single state. So you have to do loan level. And I can tell you what happened between June and July. We saw a modest improvement in delinquency. However, it is still up from May by over 8% and 30 plus. And we are seeing stickier delinquency. What everybody needs to be looking at right now is the roll from 30 days to 60 days, honestly, because if you are 30 days delinquent, you should be swooped up immediately into what's called a simple repay plan. And that's just where they'll say, hey, you can pay me like $100 towards it for the next year. They don't even need agency approval for any of that. Or if you're FHA, and most people don't call in that first month they're delinquent, they wait until 60 days or 90 days. You can do that partial claim immediately and wipe out that delinquency. But what's already happening, Travis, is you're seeing a combination of new delinquency, people that have never been delinquent. And that's what that huge jump was from, May to June, over 19% and 30 plus delinquency. Those are new delinquencies. But what's happening is you also have people who have been delinquent before. They are now non-performing again, and they are out of options. And so what's going to be important is watching that number grow from here. And I think, I believe we'll see material delinquency by June of next year.
Yeah. I mean, is this fair to say, Melody? I mean, they're so good now and effective at loan modifications. We already may have GFC level loan modifications going on right now. Would you agree with that?
Well, I can tell you that all the servicers this month are freaking out. I mean, just the volume of activity of this new surges in delinquencies and reviewing these people, you can see it. And when I'm looking at my client books, the activity went from, just kind of rolling along to shooting up. And so, this is definitely when you start to take notice, Travis. These types of changes, when you look over, every single month change in delinquency, you never see more than a percentage point. So what we saw last month is really an inflection point. And, no matter if we see minor increases in those numbers in the months ahead, it's what's sticking that we really need to pay attention to, because those are the people that cannot take advantage of those loan modifications.
And let's make sure, Melody, that people are paying attention to how foreclosure inventory works. I'm sick and tired of hearing the bulls say, oh, what foreclosure inventory, what foreclosure inventory. What people have to understand is the foreclosure inventory really didn't happen until after recession. Not even during recession, it was after recession. Take a look, guys. The recession ended in 2009. And you guys can see in 2009 is right here, the foreclosure inventory increased after the recession and stayed elevated. We didn't have a massive foreclosure issue necessarily. We could say it was brewing though, so there was an issue there, just like there's an issue here right now. But as far as inventory actually hitting the market, that happened after the biggest price decline. Melody, that's the crazy thing. That's the craziest thing of all. We didn't even get inventory until later. So I want you to go over that, Melody, and I also put a star here, and I put QE 2012. I'm going to get to that here in a minute, but I want the viewers to, remember where this is at. And essentially, I highlighted here because this is when they started QE, and you can see the minute they started QE, look at the inventory absolutely plunge. And I'm going to get to my point. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
And why that is because that's when Wall Street took advantage of lower cost of funds or lower interest rates to borrow and go out and buy up all of those homes that were in that foreclosure inventory at auction. And, I went to those auctions. I saw it happen with my own eyes. And so I think that time is very important. And believe it or not, Travis, that's when I was managing default. I came in 2012 and because I had to deal with a crisis at my company. And so I completely agree with you. The reason we saw that inventory go down was because of QE and favorable borrowing terms for Wall Street to come up and buy all these properties on the cheap to rent them out.
I mean, I can't wait to get to this next part, but, would you agree, especially after seeing that data, it going well past recession, is watching mortgage delinquency a good recessionary indicator?
No, not in my opinion. And it's
why?
only because we just saw it. We just looked at it. But like what you said, it's the aftermath. Delinquency is the aftermath of the recession. It's what comes after people lose their jobs. And so if this has been such a great economy, why do we even have, any delinquency right now? But the fact that we're at Q3 2006 levels in the Fred series, which I cannot wait for that to get updated here soon, tells you that we're on the runway and we're getting ready for this style of event. And yes, government is going to do everything they can to keep it from happening. But I got to tell everybody, they've already done that. They've already done it. And the workouts that they've provided are not working. The people that are the ticking up in delinquency are the people that cannot avail themselves of the workouts.
Melody, I'm going to show the viewers, something I really haven't gone over, and it's kind of a theory I'm working on to show the viewers, because there's a premise that even if there's foreclosures, it's not going to matter because demand will be so high at that point. The demand will just absorb these houses.
Yeah.
That's what they say. Right? That they say there's demand. So I'm going to show the viewers that there's actually demand has been like we were showing, has been pulled forward, and there is not going to be this flood of buyers. But I want to do that by starting by showing the viewers a chart of negative equity. So what we have here is negative and limited equity mortgages. Now I highlighted right here, this is 2006. Okay, so 2006, and I went to about you guys see about 2018. So in other words, guys, what I'm painting here is once the collapse started, it took 13 years for the housing market to get quote unquote back to normal from a negative equity standpoint. And this chart here is what the bulls don't want you to know as viewers. This is what causes massive hardship for families and obviously mom and pop investors and things like that. But you guys, it took 13 years. And I want to point out this, Melody. Again, the blue line are the amount of homes underwater. Okay, so this is all the way to 2012. So again, if people think that this is going to be some flash foreclosure situation, wrong. This is going to be a long, drawn out painful process that's probably going to take massive government intervention just to control, and that's probably going to just make things worse. But look at here. Again, I highlighted here, Melody, in 2012, QE in 2012, look at how much negative equity started going down. Right when that QE hit, you can see that year-over-year decline right there. The biggest decline happened when that QE started to hit. So what I'm saying is not only is normal mom and pop demand pulled forward, but my question is as a result of all that QE, did they also pull Wall Street demand forward? First, can we start here though, Melody? What impact, and tell the viewers, okay, because it was hard back then, what impact does negative equity have on the potential for homeowners to refinance and to sell?
Yeah. So, when I started on Twitter in 21, I probably didn't send my first tweet for a good year as I was just watching. But when I would start to talk about things like, saying that distress was ahead, people would always say, but look at that equity position. And I'll say, you know what? I started in September of 2006 in corporate financial planning and analysis at a top 5 mortgage originator and servicer, and loan to value, equity looked fine. Credit looked fine. My job for the next few years was watching all of that deteriorate over time. And just like you're saying, Travis, they can't, with negative equity, they cannot refinance. They can't use their home to help pay their bills anymore. It just becomes a complete drag. And also that negative equity essentially impairs them from a credit perspective. And so they can't get other types of credit. And so it is not a position that anyone wants to be. And just because something is today doesn't mean it's going to be that way in the future. And I would, 2 important updates since we last spoke, Travis, is that Mark Calabria from the industry put out a piece yesterday in National Mortgage News talking about what you and I have been talking about for years almost, is that credit quality or credit scores were artificially inflated during the COVID years. And this is the first time I've seen someone else from the industry come out. The second thing we got, I think I need to wait because I think it's probably your next slide. And I just want to talk about all the dancing that happened around lower rates and what people thought was going to happen from a refi perspective. So I'll stop there, Travis.
Yes, we are going to get there. Well done. But let's paint this picture again. So this is what happens, guys. Okay. So recession hits, job loss. When job loss hits, people stop paying their mortgage. Does that mean they leave? No, not necessarily. Okay. They stop paying their mortgage. When negative equity happens and values flattened out, they start walking away. Okay, so first you have delinquency, job market, recession, and then no more equity, cat's out the bag, people start to walk away. So that's the chain of things. And I wanted to ask, would you agree, Melody, that that's pretty accurate? Like, not having equity will cause an increase in foreclosures and delinquencies?
Yeah, it will. But so here's where I might take a contrary view, Travis, is that it's probably, I think a lot of people this time around who walked away before, who are your actual living in the property, owner occupied, that's their primary residence, right? They're probably going to stay longer than they did last time because they're going to realize it's not hopeless. And I think a lot of people in the run up before did think it was hopeless and they just walked away. So I think your primary borrowers are going to stay longer. Offsetting that, and I don't know to what degree, are going to be those investors, are going to be the people that, really have no interest in the property because they bought it for passive income or they bought it to fix and flip or things like that. And those investors will definitely start to walk away, and that will increase that inventory in foreclosure.
Okay, let's close this one out and finish by showing the viewers the mortgage-backed securities. This is what's called quantitative easing, you guys, which is basically the Fed buying assets, mortgage-backed securities. And I highlighted this in yellow here because this is when, to me, it's a clear sign of the fraud and corruption. It's a sign to me that what happened here is the Fed bailed out Wall Street, the Fed bailed out the banking system, and all of us are now paying for that right now. We're literally got taxed. Our futures was stolen, and that's what you see in yellow right there. That is our future being stolen, and that's one of the reasons why we cannot thrive right now. We are getting destroyed right now. That's one reason. And I wanted to point out again that star right there. As soon as this started happening, that's when foreclosure inventory started going down, and that's when negative equity started going down. Why, Melody? Wall Street. Wall Street. And that's what happens there. And I hope you guys understand that. And look, I highlighted this in green right here because remember, the Fed's reactionary. That means they don't even intervene until they've realized, I'm sorry, they realized that until we realized they made a problem, and then they react. And that's what you see in that green. So you see the reaction in the green. They were trying to get control of this. But instead of getting control of the clear bubble that they were creating, something else happened. Lockdowns. And instead of that bubble, again, being handled, us going back to the American way, look at that. Mortgage-backed securities absolutely blew up. And so, Melody, I just wanted to ask you, do you think that the Fed fixed anything by doing that? And can you also say, is it possible that by them doing that, it actually put today's borrowers further at risk?
I 100% believe that, Travis. We pulled forward that demand, but what we've done is eroded future purchasing power of so many people, similar to the way that we did in the GFC, had we just left the housing market alone. But I think what I would encourage everyone to understand is that for Wall Street to come in this time to save things, what would have to happen? It's not just quantitative easing, right? What else happened? Prices went down.
Prices plummeted. Yeah.
Correct. The only way Wall Street is going to come for this and fix it, guys, is if prices come down. Now, the other thing that I think may happen is that you may see Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac get involved in actually taking some of these properties onto their balance sheets that were not originally mortgage assets. And they will try to come in and help counties with asset like dissolution, like getting rid of these assets, but it will not be enough to keep prices from coming down.
Well, because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are the taxpayers. Is that correct, Melody?
They are definitely subsidized by the taxpayer. So
you're saying that you don't think that the taxpayer could afford to be taxed anymore?
Yeah, it's they can. They cannot afford to be taxed anymore.
I know I can't. I can't. I got 4 kids. I can't. I mean, my God. I mean, it's so hard to keep up. But I want to show the viewers another thing here, and that is if you didn't wait, if you got impatient, if you purchased a house recklessly, you put yourself in danger. Now, obviously, if you purchased homes with more fundamentals, like you're looking for wedge, looking for cash flow, you're going to be better armored for a downturn, right? I'm not saying it's good to buy. I'm just saying there's a difference between buying with emotions and buying with math. And what I want to show the viewers, Melody, is I don't think these people bought with math here. You see here basically 3 years, 2022, 2023, and 2024, and you see the share of mortgage rates being over 5%, some of them into the 8%. And what I'm trying to explain is how divided. What's the special word again? I completely lost.
Bifurcated.
Yeah, bifurcated. That's a special super word, code word. Bifurcated. Can I come in the club now? So this is an indication of that buying box, that toxic buying box getting bigger. And what I see here, 2022, 2023, and 2024, this to me is the buyer that's in the biggest risk. Now, I know pre-2022, they're still in hardships right now, Melody. Obviously, most people max out the pre-qualification. So if you bought in 2020, you maxed out your pre-qual. Now your property tax, your homeowner's insurance, your HOA are 50% more. Your life's upside down. I get it. And if you bought a car, I get it. It's even harder. But can you tell the viewers, how, people buying right now are actually at putting themselves in a bigger risk than what's necessary?
Absolutely. And you can see it. I mean, it's just, it's obvious everywhere you look. It's obvious with United Wholesale's like below 2% teaser rate. I mean, everyone is dying from not having the ability to securitize these mortgages to keep that machine going. And that machine is not built to help you. And so, what they're trying to do right now is bring everybody that didn't that didn't get a loan before in by offering all kinds of promises. You can see it everywhere. The problem is you're going to get trapped if you buy right now with a mortgage. And honestly, if you have all cash, unless you can lose 40 to 50% of your cash, and that doesn't impact you in any way, it would not be a good time to buy now either.
And there are people that say, Melody, that there's enough demand on the sideline right now that as soon as something goes into foreclosure, it's going to be bought up. Now, until the FTC, I get it, until the FTC shuts down that sub-2 fraud cult, I could see why they would say that. But the thing is, I don't know that there's going to be enough demand. And we already see Wall Street, the biggest investors, selling houses that they were supposed to keep forever, according to some people. Now rates are lower. And now we have data. And let me show the viewers that even though rates are lower right now, demand's gone. And so if demand's gone, there's going to be no saving. There's no saving this. There's going to be no flood of demand. And the reason why is there's no money. People don't have the money to support the type of demand needed to sustain the price. I'm not talking about rates, the price. What's more important is the price, always the price. Take a look at this. Could have used the headline data that showed this going down, Melody, but I don't need it because I could show the viewers right now where we peaked this year, we were at 7.22%. Mortgage purchase, I'm dividing out refinancing now, okay? Mortgage purchase applications were at, and this is an index, so it's measuring it based on an index, was higher at 141.7. So the highest the interest rates were this year, demand was at 141.7. Now rates have gone down about almost 75 basis points. But along with the rates going down, demand has also ticked down. So we had almost a full % of interest rate drops and demand dropped too. Melody, I mean, why do you think that even though rates went down, because when rates go down, purchasing power supposed to go up, but why didn't that happen this time?
Well, firstly, I think the most important thing is price. Again, Travis, we are definitely seeing a frozen market out there in terms of transactions lower than we saw in 2008, lower than what we saw in 2007 on an absolute level. And so, yes, rates make a difference to affordability, but we have reached such high levels of unaffordability that these small rate moves are not going to bring people back to the market. Additionally, we're seeing layoffs increase, very atypical for an August. If you don't follow Macro Edge, I would encourage you to do so. You can see they do this great layoff tracker based on the WARN notices that have to be filed at a state level. And so you basically have prices that are too high for even those that do have jobs, and you have layoffs at the same time. Additionally, I wrote about this in my Substack, to really hit a mass that can move this market, you would need rates to come below 5%. And that's not where they are now. And I also talked about how why they actually went that low during COVID. And it was just because it's the reason you showed in that chart, Travis, is the Fed started buying the MBS or mortgage-backed securities. And that's why you had such low mortgage rates. So until they do that, nothing is going to move the needle in a way that will be material for the housing market. And likely, as you kind of showed there, they always do that after the recession has started and after it really could make a difference. And so I was not at all surprised to see purchase apps not go up materially and to actually be down week over week with the data we got this week, as well as refinance apps to be down week over week too, because I've talked to many people who tried to go and refinance and they were told, hey, you just kind of need to get your credit score up 5 more points or so, or rates need to go down maybe like 50 more basis points, and this will make sense for you. So, and again, that population is not that large. It's only until you get to the sub 4.4% population, which is over 68% of mortgages, that you're going to be able to move the needle in housing.
I have something for you. I'm going to challenge you a little bit. Take a look at this.
Sure.
Take a look at this. Mortgage rates. Look at that. I don't think 5%. I don't think under 5% is going to do it, Melody. I mean, yes, it will pull some demand forward, But if we think for the last 15 years, they've been pulling demand forward. They pulled loan modification forward. They confused consumers. Like, we're at a dead end right now. I mean, look at this. I mean, rates were under 4%, under 5%. Look at this. So starting in March 25th, 2010, 4.99. And look at, they stayed low, Melody. Some of these years, look
Absolutely.
at 3%.
Yeah.
So they were in the 4s and 3% for, I mean, geez.
I'm talking about this point forward, Travis. Like, so not a more of a historical analysis, more of a what do we have in terms of outstanding mortgages at this point? And so I'm speaking to that analysis because in looking at you're below 4.5%, looking at that next tier up. And so to be able to speak to what happened, I think back then, you'd want to look also as what were people sitting in, what mortgage rates did they already have? That would be my only kind of response to that counterpoint.
Yeah, and honestly, sometimes I forget though, Melody, that we have historically low sales. I keep forgetting it's already a dumpster fire, and sales transactions have already. I mean, they're lower than the GFC.
They're lower than 2007, lower than 2008, lower than 2009, lower than 2010.
You would expect the slightest increase then, because we don't have to have that much increase to get above the 1980s and 1990s. So yeah, I mean, naturally, but it's just, it all goes back to the affordability thing. I mean,
absolutely.
It's just, there's just this perfect storm of confusion and lies and fraud and quantitative easing and Wall Street, bailing Wall Street out. I mean, my gosh, Melody, I mean, what's the solution here?
To let the market dynamics play out. We need creative destruction. We need what we need to wash through the system is a speculation. I mean, it was bad during the GFC. You had investors back, mom and pop investors back during the GFC. This time around, you had mom and pop plus the institutionals plus foreign investors that all came to the party. And we just need to let that speculation wash out of the system.
Yeah, and sooner rather than later, so we can kind of get this, over. Are you worried that they're going to be able to continue money printing, and that prices won't go down for houses? I mean, is that something you worry about?
That prices won't go down?
Well, say that we get a government and a Fed that just decides we're just going to print 10 trillion, and we're going to do some type of universal income. Are you worried about stuff like that?
Well, sure. If that happens, who's going to decide who gets to live in what house and with what show of force, right? Well, this would be a very different country. And so I think if people believe the inflationistas, you better believe we're about to be living in a very, very different country that most of us would not want to live in.
I mean, honestly, Melody, I don't see, when I look at all the data after 2.5 years, going down this path and listening to everyone, looking at so many different factors, becoming an economist, what the hell? I just want to buy a house. I don't see any other way for this situation to sustain without universal income. And I say that because the whole system's broken and it's not able to be repaired without a bust and crash. And people can't afford it. Unless and not only can people not afford it, companies cannot afford to pay their employees that much. I mean, we see businesses going out of business, filing bankruptcy like crazy. Right. And so again, the only thing that I can see is we become a socialist country, even communist country, and the government starts paying people salary. There's no other way mathematically that this sustains. I mean,
and by the way, they were paying our salary during COVID. I mean, you if you don't think that your company did not get a PPP loan that was forgiven, go look it up on ProPublica, because most of us were being paid by the government, whether we thought it was coming from our company, it was actually through those PPP loans that were largely forgiven. And this is what happened. This is what happened when we were all being paid by the government, guys. Homes became completely unaffordable. So if you think that's what you think the solution is, it's not. It will mean you will be priced out yet again because somebody else who has means is going to outbid you. If everybody gets $1 million from the government, somebody out there is going to have that extra cushion. Oh, the same top 1%, 10%, or 20% today, and they will outbid you every time. And you will be living in that one of those, trailers we saw at Colony Ridge, Travis, because and you see this already in Florida and California, everywhere. I mean, it's as bad as the Great Depression. People are living in tents. They're living on the side of the road. They're living in those, trailers. They're trying to make anything housing. They're renting out, their floor. I mean, this is insanity. And the only reason people don't think it's insanity is because the top 20% control the media. And we're not seeing these pictures. But get out of your house, go to your downtown, drive around, and you will see what we're talking about. You will see that 6% delinquency in Houston. You'll see that 47% delinquency we saw in Colony Ridge. So, this is out there. It's just being hidden.
I mean, I think you're 100% right. That was the other part of the equation. Like, yeah, I can only see it working if, government starts universal salary, but that's only going to temporarily work, right? And that's what I was asking, like, do you think they'll do something temporarily? Because if they continue to do that, we already know what's going to happen, because we see other countries turning into third world countries, Venezuela, blah, 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 blah. There's a reason why we need high interest rates. There's a reason why that's how the US was built, with high, not even high interest rates, just higher than 1%, right? Like, we're not asking for much here.
Average since the 70s is 7%, around 7%. That's the average since the 70s.
They're supporting bad spending habits, and that's the problem. And you support bad spending habits for 2 decades, this is what you get.
Yeah, this was the experience. This was the experiment, in my opinion, Travis, because essentially what you did is you gave everybody a fake credit score so they could qualify. You gave them a little additional income through fiscal stimulus, or they were able to get a cheaper loan, and so everybody suddenly was able to qualify. And what happened? This happened. And so if they do it, if people are right, if they tried to do it again, this would happen again. However, I think you're seeing the American people say, no, absolutely not. I'm not participating in this market anymore. And so I think that we, the people, have much more power than we ever acknowledge, and that really we can stop this madness.
Yeah, if we stop ourselves from supporting it, right? Like wasteful spending, reckless spending. I mean, my gosh.
Vote with your dollars. Vote with your dollars. Yes.
Yeah, spend wisely. So, Melody, that's a great talk today. We're in about 40 minutes. I'm going to get us out of here. Anything you want to say before we go?
Today's the day we got that downward revision in employment, over 800,000. Guys, if you think that you know what's really happening by reading mainstream media, I'm not sure what else to say at this point. That is direct evidence that, for whatever reason, be it completely, innocent or being on purpose, we are not getting the facts out there that matter.
Yeah, and I believe that's the biggest revision in history, if I'm not mistaken, downward revision. But and the market ate it, right? Because again, only the elite are controlling the markets. They're controlling mainstream media. So why deal with either of those things? But anyways, Melody, I appreciate you. Thank you for being a friend of the channel and an expert in all things mortgage, delinquency, foreclosure. We will lean on you. And guys, don't forget to show her some love. Go to YouTube, her Substack. And if you're out there investing in real estate, you guys already know we wish you luck and we hope you win.